So I was gone last week. You were here, man in the station, when the trade deadline came and went. From 10 to 2, you were in charge.
Yes.
The trade deadline changed my opinion on something. The arrow pointed towards...
As it happened or subsequently?
Subsequently.
Okay.
The arrow was still pointed towards, I can see a path to success with Avila in charge. Post-trade deadline, it's becoming harder and harder for me to see that. It kind of was a tipping point. I'm not in the it's 100% mandatory they replace him camp, but I am in the strong doubts, and boy, somebody's going to have to really show up and prove that he knows what he's doing soon. And by somebody showing up, I mean a Daz Cameron, a Casey Mize, a Bo Burrows, a Jake Rogers, a Travis Demerit that they just got. I mean, this trade deadline spelled out, I guess, my worst fears. First of all, I can't believe they couldn't have paired two of these guys and gotten something better. This trade deadline, they had to come away with a marquee piece. And I really can't believe they didn't. Somebody that we can say, there's your guy. And I felt like in reading Avila's quotes, and we're left to connect dots, right? We are left to connect dots. But here are the logical dots I'm connecting. Avila sat back and waited for the blockbuster offer. And when teams called, like the Yankees, he wanted Gleyber Torres. And when Houston called, he wanted Kyle Tucker. And those teams said no.
And when Washington called, they wanted Carter Kierboom.
I don't think the approach was correct. I think they should have been sellers acting like buyers. And by that, I mean they should have been buying Kyle Tucker. Okay, Boyd for Tucker isn't getting it done. What does? What does? Do Boyd and Green get it done? Can we? Are we working on a framework of a deal? Do Boyd and Funkhauser get it done? Do what? Those guys could be had, in my opinion, but it doesn't. Reading of what I read from Avila, it sounds to me like Avila sat back and waited for the market to come to him instead of turning and aggressively pursuing. So we could be sitting here today talking about the big bat that they acquired. I don't need more organizational depth. You know, they need an impact guy, and the lack of pairing guys together to get something better back, or what sounds like an aggressive, we're buyers too, we're just buying something different than what the contenders are buying.
You and I are kind of on the same page here, because my takeaway after the weekend, after reading the Anthony Fennick article in the Detroit Free Press and seeing the quotes, and then hearing what other executives would say about it when it was ridiculous, it was borderline comical of what they were asking for and all that. And I get it. I think you should ask for the moon. But my point in agreeing with you is they should have been able to pair guys together. And your approach is right. Yeah, okay, we're sellers, but here's what we want. Everybody knows what you want. Everybody knows what your situation is in the minor leagues. You've got a plethora of pitching prospects and no hitting prospects. Everybody knows what your problem is at the major league level. Look at this lineup. There's nobody in that lineup that strikes fear in anybody anymore. You need to add a bat to the lineup. Okay, so here come the Tigers. They're going to come calling. We know what they're looking for. We know what their strengths are because they've got Matthew Boyd. Everybody likes that. Everybody likes what Shane Green's done this year. Okay, Nick Castellanos is probably going to be a throw-in somewhere because the market really wasn't there to add that outfielder. Once Cleveland did what they did, there was nothing left out there. There were no teams that really wanted to do what they wanted to acquire someone like Castellanos. So and that's why that one went down with 42 seconds to go or whatever it was, and they got nothing really out of it. That's like a chance and get a couple of pitchers that whatever. I don't care about that so much. What bothered me is that you got 4 players in this trade deadline, 2 of which maybe just cast off. So you get 2 for Shane Green, and neither one of the guys they got is a high-level guy, and you got a pitcher out of one of them. Okay, Wentz might be decent, but it's not a top prospect from anybody, and you're not going to get a top prospect for Shane Green. Had you packaged him with Matt Boyd, with a team like Houston that wanted a pitcher, obviously Houston wanted a pitcher and they got a pitcher. They traded for Zach Greinke. Okay, Greinke, better pitcher than Matt Boyd. I'm not going to argue that. However, the upside to Boyd over Greinke is the team control for as long as it is, for as little price that you have to pay for it. Zach Greinke is a $30 million pitcher for the next couple seasons. Now, Arizona, I believe, is paying some of that, but still, the tens of millions of dollars you're paying for Greinke versus what it would cost for Boyd, and how much better of a pitcher is Greinke than Boyd? He's better. I don't know how much better he is. But if you had offered Boyd and Shane Green, one of the top relief pitchers in the game for this year, that's not going to move the needle a little bit more for Houston? I mean, we had talked, this is what bothered me, because you and I talked about this, about packaging guys together a week before the trade deadline. Hey, this is what they should do. And then I started identifying guys, okay, if it's not going to be Kyle Tucker, what about Seth Beer and maybe a combination of other players? Well, that's what Arizona ended up doing. They got Seth Beer and a combination of other players. But if you had offered both of those guys, Green and Boyd, could you have gotten Kyle Tucker and maybe another prospect? I think maybe you could have.
And I think in the Fenech story really spelled out something. What's crazy is, too, I was in favor of trading Fulmer a few years ago, okay?
Right.
And the Fenech story says they could have got Javier Baez, they could have got Alex Bregman in deals for Fulmer back then.
Right.
And that's part of the story that doesn't even bother me as much as something else. And look, it should, but it doesn't bother me as much as something else from the story that we have talked about a lot. And that is Avila going public with stuff.
I
mean, honestly, remember, we're going to try and trade Jose Iglesias. Well, okay.
Stop telling people that.
Yeah, right. There's no market for Nick Castellanos, he says back in the winter meetings. You're killing the markets for your own guys. You're not negotiating with him anymore. It's clear you're not going to bring him back. Everybody knows this now.
And then when you can't find the deal, and then you say that you made an offer, an extension for Castellanos, and I mean, now, and then Nick's camp is like, what? There was?
Now I'm sitting here wanting it to be successful. And part of me watches Shane Green, who I have nothing against Shane Green, but he goes to Atlanta, his first 2 appearances, he's gone 2 innings, 7 hits, 4 earned runs. And if Shane Green never saves a game the rest of the season, and the Tigers, Demerit and Wentz turn out to be, then he wins a trade. Like, he wins the trade. And I'm holding out hope that that's the case, that Avila has pulled one over on everybody, and he's right. But yeah, the doubts are legitimate. And look, you know what the Tigers did? How many of the guys they got back are former first-round picks? 3?
Three of them, yeah.
3 or 4 of the 4 guys that got back are former first-round picks. You know what it feels like they did? It feels like they got quite a haul from the 2017 baseball's top 100 and everybody's top. Like, guys that were first-round picks generally get high spots on your top 10 prospects. And then when you go out and have an ERA of 10, you drop. And so the Tigers, they've got what feels to me like 4 reclamation projects of guys who used to be highly regarded that maybe they will be, and I hope they will be.
Well, they can still make something happen in the offseason with Matthew Boyd, but I don't think it's going to be for just Matthew Boyd. Because now they're going to have to pair him up with somebody else. Unless Boyd continues to pitch. If he pitches the rest of the season lights out, his stock is going to shoot straight up again.
There seems to be a real belief that he won't be lights out the rest of the season.
I don't expect him to. I've always thought people have overrated him, but whatever. But if he pitches and maintains an ERA in the 3.5 range for the rest of the season, they can move him in the offseason, but they're going to have to pair him up with somebody again, like they should have done with Shane Green. And now you're going into the depth of the organization as opposed to going with guys that you had already at the major league level. Instead, now you're going to give up on some young guy that you're probably going to have to use anyway to get position players. They have, like I said earlier, a plethora of pitching talent in the minor leagues. They're going to have to go the old Dave Dombrowski route and use that to get the player that they need.
Meanwhile, the game's on last night, and I sit down to watch Jake Rogers and Travis Demeritte hit. Like, I can't. That is now the most interesting thing, and I always, when I think things are going wrong, I always hope and pray that I'm wrong.
Great slide by Demeritte.
And
it was nice. It was what, Demeritte, then Reyes, and then Jake Rogers. It was all worked out great for that one inning.
Rogers had a great at bat in the ninth where he milked a walk out of it. But I mean, okay, get your playoff tickets. Rogers milked a walk, right? I mean, it's a long way to go. 248-539-9797 plus your ticket text at 97136. And I'm sure the texts are coming in going, well, it's about time, guys, or been telling you this for years. Yeah, okay. I mean, fine. That's I know when you're going to hang your name on it with professional opinion, sometimes you're not as quick to judge. You really want to be sure.